everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Friday, October the 13th. Race number 9 at Keeneland. Some hard-hitting turf veterans going a mile and a half on the Keeneland lawn. Let's take a look at the field for the Sycamore. This is a grade 3, $300,000 is the purse. Mike, Bold Act is 7-2 on the morning line. Just because it's Charles Appleby? Perhaps. This horse did have a troubled trip last time out in France, but is coming over, stepping up in class and facing older horses for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, maybe he's just the right kind of new face. We've seen most of these stateside horses several different times, Dan. I think it's pretty hard to separate these horses. Bold Act is the new face to the group. He's still relatively lightly raced as a 3-year-old, and he is coming out of a stakes race going this distance in France where he should have won. He got very unlucky in that race.
There are 12 horses in the body of race number 9 at Keeneland on Friday the 13th. 13 through 16 are also eligible. Let's take a look at the Time Form US Pace Projector. And for a mile and a half race on the turf, Mike, I thought there were enough horses that can be forwardly placed, including the number 6 Cellist and the number 5 Tawny Port, a horse that's been hard-ridden in his last 2 starts on the grass.
Yeah, I think there's a chance this pace is actually pretty solid for this distance, Dan. I don't see Cellist necessarily cutting this thing. Not that he's not fast enough to do it, but man, it feels like Tawny Port, they really want that horse on the lead, especially since they switched him over to grass. Channel Maker's the 7. He's 4th on the pace projector. You know they're going to try to make the lead with him, Dan. I mean, maybe he won't be able to get there. There's other speed in this race, but they want this horse on the lead every time they send him out there.
Yeah, I kind of think he'll make the lead, maybe with the 5 Tawny Port sitting just off and the 6 and the 10 in behind. We'll kick things off with the number 1 Highest Honors. This is a Chad Brown trainee. He hasn't won in over a year and a half, and he seems to compete in all of these graded stakes races. He shows up each and every time. He usually gives a late run, and he usually doesn't get there. Blinkers on for the first time after running in the Bowling Green, and no match for Channel Maker.
Yeah, I'm just not much of a fan of this horse. I really just don't think he's that good, Dan. He's 1 for 10 on the turf. He won an allowance race. He has played, I think he's 4 times graded stakes placed on the grass, 3 of those at this mile and a half distance. So, I mean, you don't have to worry about the trip with him. I just happen to not think that he's that good. And because he's trained by Chad Brown, and he'll be around 8-1 instead of 18-1.
He was 3rd in this race last year. And if you believe the pace is going to be solid, it sets up for a horse like Highest Honors. He has to get a good trip, though, breaking from the inside post, because I think if you stop Highest Honors at any point, he's going to be in big trouble. In my opinion, the horse they're all going to have to beat is the number 2, Red Knight, a horse that finished ahead of 4 of these last time out in the Kentucky Turf Cup, a course where he's had some success, but it might not be his favorite course. He raced before that. He ran okay when 3rd in the UN. You know he's going to show up each and every time. It's all about price. I think 9-2 is fair. If he goes off shorter than that, I might look for value elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of agree with you, though, that maybe he's the horse to beat in here just because he's so reliable. The distance is no issue for him. There should be pace in here to set up his run. He is a horse that they like to sort of take him back and make one run with him. That really shouldn't be an issue for him in this race. Dan, he's just a rock solid horse. He's no superstar. He's really, really good. He shows up every time. The distance is a really good one for him.
He won this race in 2020, and he ran so well over course and distance during the spring meet in the Elkhorn to just miss. Bold Act, the number 3, is your morning line favorite. A tepid one at that at 7-2, going out for the powerhouse connections of Godolphin and Charlie Appleby. This horse did not have a clean trip last time out in stakes action in France. He faced some decent group horses over there, but they were 3-year-olds, and now he's facing a full field, coming back on fairly short notice, of older runners.
Yeah, all those things are true. He's not, listen, this isn't a field full of killers, Dan, certainly at this stage anyway. Obviously, there are horses like Channel Maker who at one point were really good. It's not the case anymore. This horse, if he runs his good race, I suspect that he can contend with these horses. To me, it's just hard to really want a super short price on him because I don't really know how good he is. Yes, he was unlucky not to win last time, but that's a race that a 6-horse field, they were all, I mean, that whole field had a shot to win that race as they came into the final 100 yards or so. It was a wide open race. He got unlucky. How good was that field, though? I'm not sure it was that good.
But as you said in the open, I can understand anyone trying to take a fresh face because it appears our North American based stayers, at least this group, they take turns beating each other. It was Therapist's turn 2 starts back in the Grade 1 United Nations at Monmouth, where he got the right trip and the right setup and ran those horses down. I think this horse loathed Kentucky Downs last time out because he was under a ride from the half-mile pole. The jock had the crop out 3/8 of a mile from home, and he just never fired. And that's not this horse. He's mostly consistent.
Yeah, easiest kind of race to just forgive for a horse like Therapist in particular. We've seen plenty of horses go to Kentucky Downs and not show up there, and then come right back at their next start somewhere else and revert right back to their good form. I suspect Therapist will do that here. If nothing else, he's been a little bit of a revelation since Maker's taken over and stretched him all the way out there, and he's really handled it.
The number 5, Tawny Port, was a nice horse on the dirt for Brad Cox last year. He won both the Lexington and the Ohio Derby on dirt. Christophe Clement has switched him to the turf, stretched him out, and it appears he wants to stay. Now, here's his most recent race, the Cape Henlopen, and Trevor McCarthy was just super aggressive with this horse, leaving the gate, and he tried to bottom down this field after about a half mile, opening up a big lead, and he got run down by a hard-hitting veteran stayer and cross border. I just think he needs to be a little bit more patiently ridden. He's got tactical speed and upside.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be on the lead. They did get very aggressive with him in that most recent start. I guess, listen, because it's horse racing, they can't give you the fractions to let you know. So you have to go and watch the replay yourself. He went a pretty fast pace in there, and he paid the price at the end. He's taken another horse. He's taken the turf really, really well this year, Dan. You know, I don't think he beat a particularly good field 2 back at Saratoga, but he certainly ran well on his own right that day.
But it was nice to see him being very aggressively ridden in that 13 furlong John's Call. I mean, there was a long shot pace setter. Rosario stayed inside that horse, pushed at it, went for home at about the half-mile point, and was an easy winner. Cellist is up next. He's been really close to the pace in his 2 starts this form cycle for Rusty Arnold, and I wonder if that's really this horse's best game. It's nice to know that he can stay close if the paces are slow. He got wired last time out. He was right up close to that gate-to-wire winner. Do you think they'll take him back and try to make one run here?
Yeah, I don't think they'll be as aggressive with him this time, particularly with some other speeds in this race. I mean, if Channel Maker and Tawny Port, if they're going to get aggressive early in this race, I'd be surprised if they decided to go after those horses early, if only because you don't have to with this horse, Dan. I mean, he doesn't look like a particularly easy horse to ride to me, but he will rate and make a run when you ask him to. Man, I know that the wins are sort of few and far between. This horse has had some really tough trips along the way in his races, and he's run really, really well at times. I don't think he's overmatched by these horses at all, and he's going to be a great price in here.
Like Old Man River, Channel Maker, the number 7, just keeps rolling along. He's 9 years old. He's banked close to $4 million in his career, and he can still step, as evidenced by his gate-to-wire win in the Bowling Green at Saratoga, one of his favorite places on earth. Last time out in the Sword Dancer, Bolshoi Ballet's okay. He's probably better than Channel Maker. He's probably better than most of the horses in this field, and maybe Channel Maker didn't care for that boggy turf course.
Yeah, he also got really pushed on the lead in that Sword Dancer last time. A yielding turf course, that pace was actually pretty fast going that distance, and this horse just really paid the price that day. The flip side of that is 2 starts back. That's the kind of trip that this horse needs. So you got control of that pace in the Bowling Green. There was a lot of trouble behind him in that race as well. If you remember, Rebels Romance lost his rider on the final turn. He wiped out everybody behind him. So Channel Maker took advantage in some ways there, but it was nice to see him win another big race. He's a really good horse. If he makes the lead, he's dangerous. But boy, if they make him go fast in here, he's in trouble.
The number 8, Kito Dan, stretched out successfully in distance for the first time last year in one of those Kentucky Downs upsets in the Dueling Grounds Derby, and he really seemed to appreciate that course. He went to the sidelines for a long time, and you just have to wonder if these connections were pointing for Kentucky Downs all winter and all spring long. They ran this horse pretty ambitiously at Kentucky Downs, twice in 9 days. In the Turf Cup last time out, he was never going to win, but he was only beaten about a length and a half for second.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it wasn't a terrible performance. I'm sure his connections, I sort of agree with you, Dan. I think they were pointing for that meet with this horse when he came back from that long layoff. And I'm sure that they were a little disappointed, but this horse ran fine in that race. I don't know if I ultimately think he's good enough to beat a field like this one. If he doesn't catch at least a break or two, maybe that'll happen. He's going to be a great price in this race, and the distance is no issue for him.
I'm a big fan of the number 9, Another Mystery. I have been disappointed in his last couple of races. Maybe you want to give him the Kentucky Downs excuse for last time out. The race 2 starts back, the Louisville. That's the race that bothers me.
I kind of agree with you. I mean, listen, it's the Kentucky Downs race last time. I don't really want to get too caught up in that, although this is a horse who had run well at Kentucky Downs in the past, so that's a little bit of an issue. Two back, that was just such a deliberate pace in that Louisville. And if nothing else, Another Mystery is a horse who needs something to run at. They're going to take him back in this race and try to make one run. And when they go slow in front of him, like they did, and that Louisville 2 starts back, he really has no chance.
I wonder if the 10 Red runs the true sleeper in this race, because it's your typical Michael Maker reclamation project. He took this horse for $50,000. Now he stretched him out on dirt, and looked what happened. He finished ahead of Nest, who's now the best dirt marathoner in the country in that Isaac Murphy marathon. He kept good company on the dirt. Last time out, he switched to turf, and he got it done with a good setup and a good trip. But now he's stretching back out. It just looks like it's Maker's MO.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he fits that sort of new face to this group MO as well, Dan. He had some turf races in the past. He was a little inconsistent on turf as a younger horse, but he had run some good races when things went his way, and things really went his way last time. That was a really fast pace going 9 furlongs, and he took advantage, but he looked good winning. And I have to agree with everything you said about Maker. Just because Maker's training him and is concentrated on longer distances with him, that makes this horse dangerous.
He beat 2 next out winners in that most recent run. Yamato came back to win the Japan Turf Cup at Laurel with a 95 buyer. The 11 is limited liability, and he's a lightly raced, maturing Shug McGahee trainee, and we've seen Shug do this with horses as they get mature. This horse ran in the UN last time out behind Therapist, but in that race he was sort of over and behind horses most of the way, and he was finishing up with some interest.
Ran okay in that race. He's just one of those 4-year-olds. He was actually pretty good at 3 last year, Dan. He's just had a tough time of it getting back to the races this year. He got started in April with a decent win in an allowance race at Keeneland. He was in that Louisville, his only other start in the spring, a very deliberate pace in front of him, and he rallied into second. I didn't think he really had a fair chance there. He hasn't really had a chance to develop yet as a 4-year-old, but there's talent here, there's potential here, and I think he'll get the distance as well.
The 12 Foreign Relations pulled off a little bit of an upset in the Grade 3 Louisville at Churchill Downs, going 1.5 miles, trying to get back to that form. I think the trip didn't work out for him last time out, kind of chasing that really fast gate-to-wire winner, get smoking on the lead. I just couldn't find the excuse for the UN unless you think maybe that distance is actually a bit sharp for him.
Yeah, I didn't like his UN, and I didn't really like his race at Ellis Park after the win in the Louisville either, Dan. Those were 2 races where I didn't think that he ran particularly well. You know, we've already referenced that Louisville a couple times. It was a very deliberate pace. This horse got a great ride in there, got right up close. I thought he looked good winning, but, you know, as more time has gone on, it just kind of feels like he had all the best of it that day and took advantage. His 3 races since then aren't that good.
Of the also eligibles, I think you could pretty much go with any of them to go with an upsetter, because they're probably a notch or 2 below these horses. Maybe Me and Mr. C would be my kind of horse, a horse that's won 10 times in his career. It's Corrales' first call for Maker.
Yeah, I wasn't that interested in any of the also eligibles. Should they get in here? I'm a big fan of Me and Mr. C, and he did win 2 starts back for Maker, but he got a great trip in that.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for a wide open edition of the Grade 3 Sycamore on Friday the 13th. You're going with number 6. Cellist, a horse that has plenty of back races that make him competitive with this group. He'll be a good price, and it seems like he has the tactical speed to adapt if the pace is fast.
3rd off the layoff now. I'm just hoping he gets the right trip here as they stretch him back out. The stretch back out in distance is no issue for this horse. I actually ran him in this race last year, Dan. He's beaten less than 2 lengths. He had an impossible trip that day. He ran great in that race. That's been a problem for him. He needs to get the right trip, but he's going to be a great price, and I think he fits right in.
Respect the 2 and the 3. I just have a feeling they're going to be too short for my tastes. Kito Dan, the number 8, is catching a field of horses that have had a long, tough campaign. He's only raced 3 times. He's the kind of horse that, to me, has a little bit of upside. I don't think he was embarrassed last time out of Kentucky Downs. Maybe it was simply because he loves that course. He'll be a giant price. 6-3 for Mike, 8-2, 3-11 for me in the Sycamore. Good luck.